So let's get a little bit more granular with the summer conversation. We're going to start with the offensive side of the ball. There's a lot of different storylines to take away here. Mike Denbrock is now into year 2. There's a lot of returning pieces on offense. There's some key incoming players on offense that we're going to get to see for the first time around the team in summer workouts. But when you look big picture, Bryan, when you start talking about the offense, what are some of the focal points of the summer for this side of the ball specifically? That's where this conversation will begin.
So part of this development over the summer, Trevor, and it was like this in high school too. I mean, I'm sure you went through this when you were in high school, but it's an important. I mean, really, the summer is an important period for all levels of football, and it's not just about building up your bodies and establishing leadership. A lot of it, especially nowadays, is also about the practical aspects of building your team. When you look at the Notre Dame offense, it's going to be different every year. What the focal point was last year was about getting a brand new quarterback on the same page with a bunch of receivers he hardly threw with so far because of the injury. Well, now you've got two quarterbacks that have spent a lot of time throwing to a lot of these receivers, but not all of them, because when you look at it, this is going the summer workouts that began this week. I believe the first time that Notre Dame has had Kenny Minchie, C.J. Carr, Blake Hebert together with the wide receiver as it's going to look in 2026. So in the spring, you didn't have Malachi Fields in the spring. You didn't have Micah Gilbert outside of the first. I think he got hurt. If we were at the first practice, he got hurt in like the first 20 minutes of the practice, I believe, if I remember correctly. And because by the time we got done with special teams drills on practice 1, Micah Gilbert was nowhere to be found. And so he had got hurt right away. He's back. Jordan Faison's done with lacrosse, so he's not splitting anymore. And then, of course, now the freshmen have a lot of experience in the system, learning certain things. And if you look at what Scrap Richardson looked like on practice 1, and then you look at what he looked like in the blue gold game, that's a completely different player. That's 12 practices. I mean, Trev, you and I saw him on practice 1. You were there, correct? You were at practice 1, if I remember.
Yep.
It all gets confusing, but he barely knew how to get into a stance. And he definitely didn't know how to get out of a stance. I mean, he's going through drills like he had never done a receiver drill before because he played quarterback in DB in high school. Like, it's understandable. By the 12th practice, you're like, this cat's a receiver now. He's still very raw, needs a lot of work, but he looked natural. You think of the big catch he made down the field during the 7-on-7 portion of the game, which we don't talk a lot about because it wasn't part of the official blue gold game, but he looked good. He looked different. I don't know that he's going to help the team this year, but you definitely said, okay, the athletic traits are transitioning. What's the big question you have about a quarterback converting to receiver? Can he catch the ball down the field? Quarterbacks tend to have very good hands. You kind of have to have good hands to play quarterback. But there's a difference in being, hey, if you and I are playing catch, I'm one-handed and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And can I catch the ball full speed, sprinting 40 yards downfield? Can I time my jumps correctly to outplay a guy for the ball? That's a whole different deal than do you have good hands? That's ball skills. Ball skills don't equal just do you have strong hands. So you talk about how much he learned. Well, now he gets to apply that and even go even further with that. Now, all of a sudden, C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchie get to establish their connection with Malachi Fields more. They get Will Pauling full speed this spring, which they did not, or this summer, which they did not have in the spring. So I think the competition at receiver is going to be huge this spring. I think that's going to bring out the best in a lot of these guys. I think Micah Gilbert and Cam Williams being able to train behind Malachi Fields is going to be huge. He was a captain for Virginia last year. Being able to see what Will Pauling and Jaden Greathouse are doing on a daily basis from a work ethic standpoint is going to be great for those younger players. And then you obviously have that, but being able to work as a unit for the next month and a half, 2 months is going to be huge to get this team rolling. So once you get to, July 31st, August 1st, August 2nd, those early, practices of the summer, it's not, hey, I'm CJ Carr. Nice to meet you. Hi, I'm Malachi Fields. Can't wait to work with you. That's what it's like at the D3 level. I mean, our freshmen are meeting and our transfers are meeting their teammates the first day of fall camp for the most part, unless they live near each other. And what's nice here is they get a good 2 months of work together. And so that's going to be a huge part for the offense, really making sure that you're able to put in the work and say, hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. Malachi can learn the offense. CJ and Kenny can work with him there. Same with Will Pauling, and really get them caught up to speed. I think that's priority number one for me when it comes to what the offense needs to do. There's a lot of other important things, Trev, but I don't know that there's anything more important than that, than the quarterbacks and receivers getting on the same page. And now the nice thing is now you have quarterbacks that know the offense, where last year it was in some degrees you had the receivers kind of bringing the quarterback along early on. You had younger quarterbacks bringing the starting quarterback along. Now it's two young guys that have been in the system for 2 years that are able to kind of start taking a little bit more ownership from a schematic standpoint, which I think is great for them as well, because they've got to be the coaches. They've got to make the play calls. They've got to do those things. And I think that's a big part. Like, I don't know if Notre Dame scripts things out for them. I would tell them to do it themselves. Like with young quarterbacks, there might be some times where I might help them script it out, but I'd want to say, no, you know what we do. You know what we're trying to do. Like, let's go learn it at least part of the time. I think that would be very good for the two young quarterbacks.
Yeah, the receiving room being able to build continuity and cohesiveness this offseason from now until July 31st is going to be absolutely huge. Because now everybody's around. You were running with a makeshift skeleton crew, partially due to injuries and some of it due to some people not being here yet on campus. Now you have everybody in full force. I'm excited to see what Elijah Burris is going to do. Can he build off of his spring? Can he put some more time in the weight room, get even more explosive, get even bigger, learn behind Malachi Fields, learn behind Will Pauling, continue to learn under Jaden Greathouse. Will Pauling's now back up to 100% speed. Micah Gilbert is somebody that I wholeheartedly believe we are going to have a lot. He was going to be a hot topic of conversation coming out of the spring if he didn't get hurt. So now I'm forecasting that, a lot of the conversation we were going to have about him in the spring, I think we're going to have a little bit more of in the summer and into fall camp. Not as much because Malachi Fields is here. Micah Gilbert's probably going to be the guy rotating in at the boundary position, but he's still somebody that's going to draw some attention, and I'm excited to see what he does with it. And then you have players like KK Smith and Cam Williams, where it's like, hey, now's the time. The receiving room is together. You two possess a skill set that not a lot of other players on this roster have. What kind of jump can you make post-spring to the start of fall camp? And so the receiver room, I'm with you. That's a really, really important facet to this offense this spring, because how big of a jump they make is going to determine how successful a young quarterback is going to be. How cohesive they play is going to dictate the level of consistency that they're able to play at week in and week out. That's something that I've been harping on this group on for a couple seasons now, is the consistency. Because we've seen games in the past where this is the receiving core that we thought we were going to see. And then there's other weeks where it's like, hey, where'd that receiving core go? And so now is a really good time to establish the identity in Mike Brown's receiving room. And I'm excited to watch it unfold as the summer goes on.
I mean, when guys have breakouts, it's not always the case, but there's definitely times when you want to see, you'll start to see it during the summer. And you talk about Elijah Burris, the guy for me is Cam Williams. Like, that's who I want to see really take that step. That's who I think needs to benefit the most from. Like, I put an article out today at Irish Breakdown where when we interviewed Marcus Freeman last week, I'm asking about the receiving core and what he liked about Will Pauling and Micah Fields, and he starts talking about how tough they are. He starts talking about how, and I was like, why did I ask a defensive coordinator linebacker this question? Like, I don't understand. Like, and he starts talking about, like, he's watching film and how when Virginia would run screens that weren't going to Malachi, they would put him at the point of attack where he's the lead blocker on a lot of their screens. And he's like, that taught me some. And he goes, of course he's a game changer and he wins one on, and it's just like, but man, he's so tough. And it's like, why did I ask him this question? That's exactly what I should have expected from Marcus Freeman. Like, it's like, know your audience, right? Like, know you're asking it. But the point was, it's like he got that reputation, and he's doing that because he's a worker, because he's got a team first attitude, and he knows how to use his size and his speed to dominate. Well, that's something that Micah and Cam need to learn from. And Micah, especially coming back from the injury, missing that opportunity to get those extra reps this spring, he's got to get caught up to speed. But I think Cam and Micah learning from Malachi Fields and vice versa is something that, from them, it's learning the offense and things like that. But I think that's going to be big for those young players. And you hope that his presence can raise their level of play. You hope that the presence of Will Pauling, forces Jordan Faison, Jaden Greathouse to really step up their game, of course, but also you hope that the presence of Will Paulding makes KK Smith say, hey, man, if you want to play at Notre Dame, this is your shot. You better go out there and put in the work to become that guy. And it's in you start to separate, I can't even think of a better term other than get biblical, but start to separate the wheat from the chaff. You know what I mean? Like it's who wants to win and who doesn't, who wants to be a champion and who doesn't, who wants to dominate, who wants to just be along for the ride. You start to learn those things over the summer. And I think that's going to be something for the receiving corps that's going to be a huge part of what they're doing this year. Huge part.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you already touched on it, but now the connection that they're going to be able to build with the quarterbacks that are on campus is going to be absolutely crucial. Because in the last season, we saw what the repercussions were of, quarterback getting somewhat of a late start. Not his fault. He had to get some things cleaned up. Then obviously it ended up working out in a different fashion. Notre Dame played for a national championship last season.
But that one part of his game, I'm sorry, you were about to say it. I just couldn't help myself. I started getting excited. Go ahead, Trev.
No, you're good, man. But if there was one aspect of the Riley Leonard play from 2024 that needed to be improved to get over that hump, it was the connection with the wide receivers. We're talking about a team that didn't have a passing touchdown for the first 3 games of the season. That's something that I would be beyond astonished if that happened this season. And look, I'm not just saying the summer is the only reason why that happened, but it's a big part. It is a factor in not being able to build chemistry with those guys. Bryan, would you say that it is an easier transition for a wide receiver to get caught up to speed with quarterbacks that already know the system opposed to the inverse?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's with Malachi, for example, he's got to learn the offense, and he's just got to learn this is how Kenny throws and this is how CJ throws. I mean, yeah, you're going to catch some balls from Blake Hebert, but you've got to learn how CJ and Kenny throw. Kenny's arm angle is different than CJ's. What does that mean? The spin rate is different for the two quarterbacks. One guy's ball tends to sail, one guy's ball tends to drive down. Hypothetically, I don't know that there's a giant difference in these two quarterbacks, but that in theory is kind of part of the deal. It's, like, for example, if you were a new receiver coming into play for Notre Dame in 2015, left-handed throw from Malik Zaire, right-handed throw from Deshaun Kaiser. Deshaun's balls tended to kind of nosedive. They would, the way his throwing motion, he had a very much a pitcher's motion, and so the ball would kind of drive down. Malik's ball tended to kind of stay on level or rise a little bit. Those things you're getting used to, but it's one guy learning that, and you catch a million balls from them. Whereas for a quarterback, there's so many different things because the receiver just has to run his route. You got 8 different receivers that run their routes. It's the quarterback who has to learn how each guy likes the ball, how each guy finishes. I've got to know where I got to lead KK Smith on a post route and where I got to lead Jerome Bettis Jr. on a post route, or Jack Larson on a post route, or Eli Rarid on a post route. Because with KK, if I lead him the same way I do Jerome Bettis, that ball's underthrown. If I lead Jerome Bettis the way that I do KK, that ball's overthrown. So it's not always about, well, when you throw a post route, you want to throw the ball 17 yards in front. No, because some guys 17 yards, they're so fast, they're waiting on it. And so you're getting used to that. Who is good at back shoulder? How do guys like back shoulders? Not everybody likes a back shoulder the same way. Some guys like a back shoulder to be high and above their head. They want to go up and get it. Some guys want it. They got really nice hips. They can really flip their hips around and make a catch that's more outside on the sideline. Those are just different things that you need to do. This Malachi Fields, if I'm throwing a jump ball in the back of the end zone, I'm going to throw the ball a whole lot differently than if I'm throwing it to KK Smith. Because for KK, it's higher, but you've got to get it on the back shoulder, where with Malachi, just throw it high. Just let him go out, jump that guy. And then if Mike Brown's the coach that I think he is, he's going to teach him what all good receivers coaches do, where if you catch it high and you're square to the defender and you're coming down, you don't come down here, you keep the ball higher, you put it over your head where he can't knock it away. So what we would work on when I was coaching is we would catch it, put it behind your head if you were catching a ball like that. You never do that actually in a game, but if you're thinking about that, you at least get it over your head. Those are things you need to work on, where with KK, you may not throw the ball like that because this game is very different. And I'm using those two as an example, not to bang on KK, but like they're the two most distinctly different body types of the receiving corps. Their games are very different. with 6'4", 220-pound Malachi Fields and 5'11", 175-pound KK Smith. It's just, but at the same time, if you're leading Malachi the same way you might KK on a go route, that ball might be slightly overthrown because KK is really fast. And so that's what a quarterback has to learn, all of that. How I throw the ball to Eli Raridon may not be how I throw the ball to Jack Larson. You've got to know that. You've got to know who likes the ball at certain spots, who's willing to go down and get it, and who isn't. And those are all parts of what you do. Who's the guy that on slant routes body catches? And I know I got to throw the ball into his hip, because if I throw it into the chest of a guy who body catches, that ball is going to go floating up in the air. So I got to get on the back hip, or if he drops it, it kind of goes down. And who are the guys that really can go get it? So who are the guys that are really good in traffic? You got to learn that, because you're going to throw the ball to certain guys in traffic. Other guys, you try to throw them the ball in traffic, pick. So those are all parts of what a quarterback has to learn. Is you have 8 receivers, they're going to be 8 different players. They're going to play the game 8 different ways, and it's up for a quarterback to understand a curl route's not a curl route's not a curl route for all 8 of your players. Some guys are faster in and out of their break. If you have a guy that's really choppy in his curl route, he may be open, but you got to know split second later you got to throw the ball. Because if you throw the ball the same time you do a guy that's really quick, boom, in and out of his break, boom, it's going to hit him right in the face, right? Where if you wait that extra second for a guy that's really quick, like Jordan Faison is really quick in and out of breaks. And so if you wait on him the way you might a bigger player like Malachi Fields, that ball may get there late. If you throw the ball as quick to Malachi Fields you do or Jordan Faison, that ball is going to get on him in a hurry. Those are all things that a quarterback has to learn. When you talk about, and whereas a receiver just has to learn 1 or 2 quarterbacks throwing styles, but then he's just got to go play. I just got to go be me.
Yeah.
It's up to you as the quarterback to understand what I'm good at or what I'm not good at. So I think that's why it's much harder for a quarterback, and that's why it is important that I get that CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey are not returning starters, but that's why I don't think the pass game early in the season is somehow going to be worse than it was early last season, because they are having that time. I mean, the number of balls that CJ Carr has thrown to, I'm just using an example, to Micah Gilbert and KK Smith and Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison, compared to and same thing for Kenny Minchey, and the same thing for, or the number that they threw compared to what Riley did last year to those guys, by the time you got to the summer it's way different. And Riley wasn't even 100% when the summer started last year. So that's the advantage that those guys have. But now's the time they got to build that connection with Malachi, and even more so with Will Pauling. Now that you have Will Pauling at full speed, you've got to really understand that CJ has thrown a lot more balls to Cam Williams than he has to Micah Gilbert.
Yeah.
Because Micah was out. So now you guys have got to, you and Kenny got to get up more on the same page with him. So those are all parts of what the development is like, and why this is such an important period for that position group and that to group together. And you can throw the tight ends in there as well. It's the same thing with them. And like Ty Washington is a guy we throw in there for them. It's he's got to step up and really have a good spring and get used to the quarterbacks and those type of things. So you could throw all of them in there, but it's much tougher for the quarterbacks to learn those guys, which is why it's so important that right now everybody's healthy and everybody's there.
Yep. Absolutely.
I would assume that the first pass that CJ Carr or Kenny Minchey throws to James Flanagan this week will be the first pass that CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey have thrown to James Flanagan. Same with Malachi Fields, I would think. Maybe he got some workouts in when he was visiting, but you get what I'm saying, like in this type of setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Sticking on the theme here of tight ends, they're another position group that we're going to be watching relatively closely as the summer goes on. Not so much at the top. It's a different conversation than where we're at with the receivers. Wide receivers, Malachi Fields, he's drawn a lot of attention. He's a top newcomer. He was a top portal target for Notre Dame. He's expected to come in and change the landscape of what that room is, in addition with the pieces that they already have. Tight end, they have an established number 1 tight end, and it's Eli Raridon. He needs to, of course, stay healthy, continue to grow, and build on his spring. But a lot of the questions that we have in that position room are what comes after Eli Raridon. And that is what's going to be interesting to watch unfold up until July 31st and then well into fall camp. Because right now, as we know, Cooper Flanagan probably not going to play many, if at all, snaps in the regular season for Notre Dame this year. He's still coming back from his injury. So what does the room look like? Well, you have Kevin Bauman, who is a 6-year senior, has battled his fair share of injuries, but he stayed relatively healthy over the last season and then last spring. He had a pretty good blue gold game. He had one of the beautiful catches on the sideline delivered from C.J. Carr. You have Jack Larson, who is going into his eligibility-wise redshirt freshman, but sophomore year of school at Notre Dame. Excuse me. And then you have a couple players that Bryan has already mentioned. You have Ty Washington. He's going to be on campus now. He's the transfer from Arkansas. James Flanagan is also on campus now as well. So what will the pecking order start to look like in that tight end room? How will they start to build their chemistry? Because as history has shown us, Notre Dame, regardless of who the offensive coordinator has been, plays multiple tight ends. We saw that under Chip Long. We saw that under Tommy Rees. We saw that under Jared Parker. We saw that under Mike Denbrock last season. Now, Denbrock has a tendency to lean more into, okay, these are the strengths of the offense this year. We're going to play those. But Mike Denbrock is also the tight end position coach. And so there will be formations where Notre Dame will still line up in 12 personnel. Who starts to rotate in as that second tight end? Will it be Kevin Bauman? Now, this question won't fully be answered in July because they're not lining up in team periods. They're not going through those type of deals. But what kind of summer will Ty Washington have? What type of summer will Jack Larson have?
That's the key, right? It's growth. It's not first team, second team, third team. You're correct. It's about putting yourself in position that when fall camp starts, you're ready to seize hold of a position. 100% correct. Jack Larson, it's built on how you finish the spring. With Ty Washington, it's the same thing as the other guys. You've got to get caught up to speed. And for him, there's even more on him because he doesn't have the proven track record that Will Pauling and Malachi Fields have. And so he's got a lot to prove. And, Kevin Bauman, his summer goals, he's got one summer goal: stay healthy. Like, that's literally the only thing we need to see from Kevin Bauman because we know he can do some things if he's healthy. Same thing with Eli Raridan. Those guys just got to stay healthy. The depth there, the key to the tight end position is those two staying healthy. Just keep doing what you're doing. But it's Jack Larson taking a step this summer, and it's Ty Washington getting as acclimated as possible over the next month and a half. Those are very, very keys to the tight end depth chart. If we hear good things about Jack and Ty really stepping up this spring or this summer, then I'm going to feel a lot better about the tight end room, Trev, because I'll be honest, I think James Flanagan can help you right now. But I want James Flanagan to play because he earned it, not because you had to play him because injuries and other guys didn't step up. I don't want to have to deal with that. That's not the ideal situation. I want James to be on the field this year because Ty had a great summer in fall camp. Jack had a great summer. Kevin Bauman had a great summer. But James Flanagan was too good not to play. That's what you want. And then if he doesn't play, it's because, great summer for Ty and great summer for Jack, and you feel a lot better about where that room is, because that's probably that might be my biggest question mark on the entire team from a depth standpoint. Tight end.
Yeah. Yep. Tight end is right up there for me. Definitely on the offensive side of the ball. It has the most questions for me around what does the depth look like after Eli Raridan. And then we saw Eli Raridan fully healthy all last season. We saw him healthy throughout the winter and the spring into now, but you do still have that lingering thought of like, okay, and this is something that the coaching staff has to prepare for, if he does go down, what's the pecking order after him? The foundation of that starts to get laid in the summer, and to your point, it's in different lights. Jack Larson has to build, and James Flanagan and Ty Washington have to get acclimated to what this Notre Dame offense is going to be about. Different lights. James Flanagan also has to balance the getting caught up to the collegiate athlete speed as well, because some of the guys he's going to be going against, lining up against, a Notre Dame safety, a Notre Dame linebacker, Notre Dame nickel, it's going to be a little different than what he faced in high school, as well as getting acclimated to the playbook, the rest of the room, developing his relationship with the quarterbacks. Ty Washington is going to have to use the experience he had playing in the SEC and against teams like Alabama, against teams like Ole Miss, against teams like Tennessee, use that as his foundation, but still in the same light, get acclimated to what the Notre Dame tight end position is about. So watching that begin to unfold in the summer is going to be something that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. Bryan, any final thoughts on the tight end position for this summer? Okay. There is one more position that I am kind of interested to see what happens with them this summer. And it's different conversation than what we've had with the first two than wide receivers and tight ends. But I'm also going to be paying attention to the chemistry of what the offensive line room is, because Notre Dame is in an interesting spot with this group. All 5 guys that are projected to start as of right now started games in 2024, but the combination of this 5 have not done it together. Emil Wagner had 16 starts last season. Billy Schrouth now has 15 career starts. Anthony Knapp has 15 career starts. Ashton Craig has 6. Charles Jagasaw has 2. However, Charles Jagasaw has 2 starts, not at the position that he's slated to start at right guard, but he did play the rest of the first half and the entire second half against Penn State. So their chemistry that they build over the offseason in the summer specifically, offensive line is one of the bigger positions that I think of building chemistry through things like the weight room and offseason film sessions and the camaraderie being around each other, because they are the one position on offense that have to move and play well together as a unit. So watching them, one, stay healthy, because one of the reasons why we didn't see them together a lot in the spring was because of health. Anthony Knapp's got to stay healthy. Billy Schrouth has to stay healthy. Ashton Craig has to stay healthy. Charles Jagasaw has to stay healthy. And then, of course, Emil Wagner played 973 snaps last season. So he also has to stay healthy with the workload that he had. But watching them build out their chemistry as a 5-man unit is going to be big.
And I like the fact that Notre Dame chose to let Emil get some of his rest and recovery time in the spring.
Yep.
Knowing that it meant missed reps as opposed to the summer. Because you don't want your summer to be your rest and relaxation period. That's when you're getting ready for the season. And if you would have pushed him, hey, you're a starter, we need you to be around every day and practice as hard and do all that, where would he be right now? I don't know the answer to that question. So I want to see that part of it. But to your point, Anthony Knapp getting back to full speed as he kind of got late into the summer. I mean, in the spring practice still he was able to go. Where's Gerby at in his, recovery? Is he going to be able to give you anything this summer as far as working out, getting the freshmen to take that next step? But it's really comes down to getting Jagasaw fully good to go health-wise, Knapp fully good to go health-wise, Ashton Craig good to go health-wise. Billy Schrouth dealt with some stuff. So this is a pretty beat-up unit by the end of the year and in the spring brawl. So getting them all back and healthy is important. But as you said, we talked about the receiving core and how this is going to be the first time they're all together. This is the first time the offensive line is going to be all together in its expected form. I don't think they've taken a single practice snap ever together, because Ashton Craig was out all spring, where it was this lineup together. We saw potentially 4 of them together, because we did see in the spring Emil and Anthony Knapp and those guys ready to play, but it was a little bit different. And so you need to see them come together. Cohesion, leadership. It's a big period for leadership. Can Emil continue to take? I think him and Billy both need to kind of be leaders. I like having a couple leaders in the room. They can have different personalities. Emil strikes me as they all need to be hard workers, but Emil strikes me as just kind of being around him a little bit at practices and listening to him talk and things I hear about him, from my sources inside the program. He strikes me as more of like the Mike McGlinchey type of leader, smart, will talk, will give the inspirational speeches, will talk to guys. Like Billy's a little bit more of that grinder type. And then, as we've talked about before, I know you've talked about it, I know Vince has talked about it. When you talk to the players in different interviews and you ask them about leadership, a lot of them point to Ashton Craig. So for him, it's hard to lead when you're not there. Now he gets to be back there. How does he then assert himself? So I think all those things are very important as you start to look at the spring and think about what this offensive line is going to be, because they will do offensive line work together. It's not like 11 on 11 stuff, but they're going to be working on timing. You don't need a defense to work on timing together. And timing is a lot of things. It's getting into your snap. It's about the center. It's about the centers working on mixing up their snaps. Because what you can't do is snap, clap, second, snap. Clap, a second, snap. It's up to the center nowadays. It used to be up to the quarterback to delay the cadence to try to get teams. Now it's the center that's got to say, okay, it's what, you've got to have proper timing. It's about that. It's about getting them on the same page as far as getting off the line at the snap. You want them coming off as one. It's about working on double teams and how quickly. I've got to get a feel. Anthony Knapp's got to get a feel for when Billy Schrouth is good to take a guy over and vice versa when they're working the other way. Jagasol and Emil Wagner need that. And Jagasol and Wagner need even more work than Knapp and Schrouth, because Knapp and Schrouth had almost half a season to work on that together. Wagner and Jagasol played, a half a game together, side by side against Penn State. And then neither Schrouth nor Jagasol has a whole lot of work with Ashton Craig, because Ashton's only had 6 starts in his career, and he's been out for a while. Jagasol's never had a start with Ashton Craig next to him. He started a game with him 2 people over, but he was out last year when he came back late. So getting everybody on the same page, when to get to the second level, all those type of things is all part of it. Communication when working on stunts, line stunts, that's a big thing that they can spend a lot of time on this summer working on. And it's just them going against each other. It's not going to be fast. It's not going to be as fast as when Boubacar's doing it, or Bryce Young's doing it, or Josh Burnham's doing it, or Logan Thomas is doing it. But it's about the communication and seeing it. Okay, this is when this happens. Because what happened last year, it's not that they were too slow to react to it a lot of time. It's like they didn't react to it at all. They didn't see it. So working on that is going to be a big part of what we see this summer as well.
100%. Yeah, absolutely agree. Bryan, any final thoughts on the offense before we move over to defense?
I think is going to be the biggest topic of conversation until we get updated rosters. What's Knapp and Wagner weigh? Yeah. I'll bet you $20 that's the question I get asked more than anything else about the Notre Dame offense this summer. How much does a Wagner and Knapp need to weigh? How much do they weigh? And so I just want him to get to 300 just so I can stop asking about it. Like if he's just get to 300. And I don't care if Anthony Knapp is not even 300 pounds. Just put him at 300 pounds on the roster so I don't have to keep answering questions about is he big enough or whatever else. Like I'm more worried about Emil with that than I am Anthony. But Emil did look more filled out in the upper body this spring. But for him, it's just going to be about really building up that lower body this summer. That's going to be the key for Emil.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I'd take you up on that $20 bet too. I absolutely would. Well, all right, folks, that's going to do it for the offensive segment of today's show, but don't go anywhere. We are getting ready to break down the defensive summer. But before we get there, you guys know what to do. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, share this podcast with your friends and family. And as always, the best way to support what we do here, you see it scrolling down there at the bottom of the screen. Subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Give the Championship Lounge a good look, because a lot of the questions that we get in mailbags, a lot of the stuff that we get in buy, sell, holds, which is also just for premium message board members, a lot of that intel gets dropped on the message boards. It's not on the free website. It's at boards.irishbreakdown.com.